welcome back. Of course, quite a few primaries across the landscape last night, and Oregon was one of them, but there were some other key ones out there as well. So it's perfect timing for us to have Megan Barth back with us. She's the executive editor of the CaliforniaGlobe.com, and that is the website, CaliforniaGlobe.com, and well-seasoned, experienced editor and journalist. Good to see you. How are you, friend?
Good morning. Great to see you too, Perry.
Thank you for your time. All right.
You're welcome.
Some big ones out there last night. What stood out to you?
Well, I definitely think the overthrow of the McConnell dynasty was pretty significant in Kentucky, and that includes Thomas Massie. But then when you go all the way back to Indiana just a couple weeks ago, there were 4 or 5 state representatives that were bounced out, and those were Republican representatives replaced by Trump endorsed candidates who did not want to redistrict Indiana according to the new Calais decision. So, when we look across the landscape, I still don't believe the polls that Trump is only polling at 30%, especially when he wields this much power in these special elections and primaries, unseating the establishment and just picking them off one by one. You go down to Cassidy in Louisiana. We can go down to Texas, where John Cornyn is going to be challenged by the Trump-endorsed Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. And I don't think that Cornyn has much time left in order to defy this administration with his votes. And so I think Republicans are on notice, specifically the Republicans that are the old McConnell wing of the party, the establishment wing of the party, the neocons, the ones that would rather get along with Democrats instead of defeat Democrats on behalf of the American people.
All right, that is clearly becoming obvious now. And with the Massie defeat last night, I mean, that was a big defeat.
Huge.
It's kind of mind-boggling, really, that the president got involved in that, kind of late in the game, but nonetheless pulls it off. I'm sure the legacy media this morning is already seeing it. He's just attacking people. But the bottom line is the citizens did this. The citizens ousted him.
That's right. The mainstream media continues to forget that there are conservatives in this country, there are Trump supporters in this country, and we actually are effective when we work together. This is why we delivered the Trump administration to the White House, not once, not twice, but 3 times. You can't tell me that 2020 was the most secure election in the history of the United States of America or the world. We'll never believe that one. But nonetheless, there is a rising tide in this country, and there has been a rising tide in this country for a very long time. And it's all culminating in these special elections. And I do have more hope for the midterms. I do believe that when we look at specifically on these elections, when you look at the voter turnout, there is really no apathy there.
Yeah.
There are people that are still turning in their ballots, going to the polls, campaigning. There is a resurgence, I would say, of the Trump base, that they understand that the Washington elite, the Republican establishment party, put aside the Democrats, are working against them. And the only way to get this administration working full-time on behalf of 80 million Americans that voted for Donald Trump is to remove the old guard and bring in some fresh blood.
Megan, I'm kind of curious, what do you think about the president endorsing Attorney General Ken Paxton?
I love it.
Okay. So how vulnerable is Cornyn?
Very vulnerable. And now Cornyn's, going to, have his way. And now, from what I understand, and this is kind of the rumor around the water cooler, so to speak, out of D.C., is that the Senate leadership was really shooken up by the endorsement against Cornyn for Ken Paxton. And they were basically having a crying session within the last couple days of that endorsement. Hand-wringing, pearl-clutching, et cetera, because they are losing one of their establishment figures, again, that will willingly side with the Democrats and compromise the will of the American people and the will of this administration. So Ken Paxton was himself a victim of the establishment Republican Party in Texas, whereby they created a witch hunt against Ken Paxton, which he ended up winning in court. And so, this really shows you not only the depth of the dirt in politics, but just how politics really does operate as a business, and a very skeezy business at that. And it requires house cleaning.
Do you see the president campaigning in Texas for Paxton?
I see the president, and from what I understand, and he's said this a couple times before, he is really going to get out there and even hold rallies for the midterms. He has not done that before. And as we know, and you and I, Perry, have been around, this political sphere for a very long time, midterms, specifically with the president not at the top of the ticket, usually signals and usually has lower voter turnout, whereby the majority party usually loses, and then the minority party takes control of one of the legislative branches of government. I don't necessarily see that happening now for a couple reasons. One, Trump did say that he is going to hold large rallies for the midterms in order to get his Make America Great agenda, America First agenda passed and through the legislative body. Number two, we have the significant Calais decision that came out of the Supreme Court, which found that no, the Democrat scheme of gerrymandering and jerry-rigging maps based on race is now over. And so what we have is, individual states redistricting. Some have chosen not to, which was a mistake. But nonetheless, we have states that are going back and creating fair maps. So there are fair representation, and not the maps like, Virginia was producing, which they consider fair, which means there's one Republican representative in all of Virginia and 9 Democrats, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. We could take that scenario across the landscape. I want to come back to Kentucky just for a moment. Massey losing, that's a huge loss. But what got into the Masseys and the Marjorie Taylor Greenes? What got into these Republicans?
That's a great question, and there's a lot of speculation, and the only people that can really answer that question are those two nut jobs. But nonetheless, the Epstein saga was going on for decades. Mm-hmm. The whole time that these two people were in Congress, when you look at their past tweets, past statements, they never mentioned, maybe 1, 2, 3 times in a decade or so, they mentioned Epstein, or during their time in Congress, they mentioned Epstein. Then all of a sudden they became obsessed. And it became this anti-Israel Epstein battle cry, anti-Epstein battle cry, and it just didn't hold water. It did not seem genuine, especially when you do such an about face. I think Massey was all about Massey, and I think Marjorie Taylor Greene was all about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
I think that they were there for the business side of politics. I think they were there for the money side of politics, and they certainly weren't there for their constituents or the president or President Trump's administration.
Well said. There's a report out that the Democrats spent a lot of money investigating themselves to find out why are they losing. And they
okay.
And
keep spending money. Less money they have for elections.
Okay, but they won't release the findings of their own report. They seem to be really unwinding. They're not raising money. The big money is not flowing there, and yet they can't seem to get away from demonizing President Trump. Where do you think they are?
I think they're somewhere between Bernie Sanders socialism and full-blown communism, and they don't really know how to tread that water or thread that needle. Because when you look at what's going on for, like, Mandami, for example, they believe that, he is the next leader of their party, and you have what I would consider I guess moderate Democrats, but what's a moderate Democrat to a communist these days? I don't really know what a moderate Democrat is. I certainly can say with full conviction that you do not have a Democrat Party in the eyes or the style or the making of the JFK brand. It's no longer ask not what your country can do for you. It's ask what your country can do for you, demand your country do something for you, and you don't have to do a darn thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you look at their numbers, they're like not only nearly bankrupt, but they are hundreds of millions of dollars behind the RNC as far as fundraising is concerned. That's not a good look going into the midterm. When you look at the rising anti-Semitism in their party, and there's also some on the right as well. However, I think they're paid actors. But when you look at the rising anti-Semitism in their party, they are going to have a very hard time. And when you look at how they are embracing illegal immigration, I just read an article yesterday that the polled Democrats would happily give up the black vote. They would happily give up the black vote. And this tells you something, that the black vote was used by Democrats as a weapon. And so now that weapon softened, specifically with the Trump administration, and you see historically democratic demographics shifting, well, then where are they going to go? They're going to go to illegal immigration, and that's why Joe Biden imported tens of millions of illegal aliens and trafficked them into our country. So the Democrats are really having a hard time. For example, I'll make one last point. Now, all of a sudden, they're the economic populist party. I thought populism was bad. But their economic populism, according to them, and this is what I've read, is socialism. So they have fully embraced socialism. And I've always said that they are the party of socialists. That's where socialists find their home. That's where communists find their home. They certainly don't run around campaigning for the RNC. Now, this latest populist message that they think is going to win, the old blue-collar worker, you've got a guy in Maine running against Susan Collins that has a Nazi tattoo on his chest. So Democrats would, under the guise of economic populism, are going to run a dude with a Nazi tattoo on his chest. That's how far the Democratic Party has fallen.
By the way, to underscore that, Alan Dershowitz, who has been a Democrat for years, has come out and basically said what you just said. I'm leaving the party because of this. They are now hardcore anti-Semitic socialists. And he has joined, he was going to become an independent, but now he's joined the Republican Party. That's pretty significant, especially with a guy like him.
Well, yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of moderate. I have friends that are Democrats, and they too, and it's simply because they just have this. They believed that Trump is everything that the Democrats told them that Trump is. He's evil. He's all of this, racist. He's a white supremacist. They're starting to see through that veneer. They're starting to see through that lie. And I think the more and more far left that the Democrats go, they are losing the middle. They are abandoning, and this is why Trump was a populist. I mean, he was the working man's billionaire. I always said this. He was one of the very few people I have ever personally met that has that much power, but is so tangibly connected. Meaning, I've met a lot of people in power. I've met a lot of politicians. I've met a lot of billionaires. There's an air about them, which is nearly cold, right? They're untouchable. They're not tangible. President Trump was your blue-collar billionaire.
Yeah.
He's been in the construction ditches. He understands what it takes to build something. He understands the psyche of the working man. He understands the struggle of the working man. Now the Democrats are going to cosplay a populist, but they're going to do so under the guise of populism, socialism, populism, communism. It's like the hyphen.
Yeah. Boy, good stuff. All right, let me take a populist break. I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. This perfect timing. Delighted to have Megan Barth with us. She's the executive editor of the California Globe. And you go to thecaliforniaglobe.com, not only California, Nevada, she's all over the place. All right, I want to come to California. That primary's just down the road here a little ways. And if you ever write a book and call it weird, we used to call Portland weird. I think California is weirder.
It's one of a kind.
All right, so you have an open primary, boils down to two. You got a ton of people running on the left. You've had some fallouts that have been pretty embarrassing. Is Steve Hilton still doing well?
Yeah, he is. According to the latest polls, he's actually leading. I think he might be one or two. It depends on which poll you're looking at. But I expect that he will be one of the top two that make it through the primary. And I believe it might be him and Tom Steyer, who made his billions off fossil fuels, private prisons, two things Democrats hate. But now he's anti-fossil fuels and anti-private prisons. But, you know, you can just switch your principles whenever you want if you're a Democrat, as long as you have a lot of money behind you. And so I do think that Steve Hilton has a very good chance of ending in the top two. There's also Xavier Becerra, that is some of the, like Jasmine Crockett, just endorsed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the kiss of death, but she's rearing her ugly head again. So,
Okay.
you know, we'll see how this shakes out. But the Democrats are having a lot of problems in California. And specifically, the head of the Democratic California Party asked one of the 13 people, or at least a handful of the 13 people, to step aside. Just to give you how unprincipled Democrats are, and this is just not California Democrats, this applies a broad swath across the country. The guy behind the jungle primary, one of the advocates, a Democrat strategist behind the jungle primary, which allows the top two candidates, and normally for the last, 30 years, it's been Democrats. Now they want to eliminate the jungle primary because a Republican may be one of the top two, and they certainly can't have that.
So, are you talking about going back to closed primaries?
That's what this ballot initiative that I believe is being concocted in time for the November election, giving voters a choice again, where voters voted on the jungle primary years ago, and now they want to strip the voters of that vote and take it back to the voters because, God forbid, a Republican should ever lead California again. And I have to tell you, the race that I'm really watching in California outside of the governorship is the LA mayoral race.
Yeah.
This is a huge wake-up call.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. It really is, to the point that they don't even want to debate each other anymore.
Right.
I mean, they're
after that first time when Spencer Pratt wiped the floor with him.
All right, so where's that going? Can he pull it off?
You know, I honestly think that he can. I mean, why not? Especially in this kind of electoral season where we're seeing the old guard being tossed to the side. And I do believe, and I just had a friend, I went to dinner last night with a friend of mine who was just in LA, and he's not from LA. I lived in LA for 20 years. But he said that's on the front of everyone's mind is still the fires and how devastated LA is, and how, many people, especially in the service industry, born and raised in LA, maybe want to become actors or actresses, like Spencer Pratt, for example, born and raised in the Palisades. I remember when California was the Golden State. I lived there for 20 plus years. Yeah. And I started living there in 1996. It was still a very clean, very safe place to live. It was still safe to go downtown LA. It was still safe to go to many of these places like Santa Monica, Venice. You cannot go there anymore without being completely accosted by a mentally ill, zombified drug addict. I will not go back until there is a change in leadership. But what this shows you and what this means and why I mention this is because people that have lived in California, that were born and raised in California, remember a time when it wasn't like this.
Yeah.
They also are seeing their costs go up, but then they're being exposed to the fraud, waste, and abuse where their taxpayer dollars are actually going. The taxpayer dollars aren't going to fix the roads. They aren't going to fix homelessness. They are actually going to politicians and their associated nonprofits that are ripping them off. And I think that Californians are ready for a change, and I think Spencer Pratt has done an amazing job of toppling not only a socialist, but a avowed communist, and that's Karen Bass, by bringing the message directly to the people and being honest, raw, and a true California local that understands that California can be great again.
For the record, I was born and raised in Sacramento, so I get it. That's where I started my broadcast career, in Sacramento. Yeah.
And, you know, Katie Grimes, our editor-in-chief at the California Globe, she lives in Sacramento. She's been reporting on Sacramento politics for 30 years. Mm. She also remembers a time when you could walk around downtown Sacramento, enjoy the parks, enjoy the open spaces. You can't do that in Sacramento anymore.
So let me ask you this before I run out of time, and that is, I realize you got two big races that are getting all of the attention. You got a governor's race, and Steve Hilton looks good. You got this race down in L.A. For the mayorship, and Pratt looks good. But what about some of the assembly races and the Senate races? Do you see anything there that could be significant? Any turnovers?
Well, no, because here's the problem. You know, the people reportedly passed Prop 50, which gerrymandered the state and eliminated 5 Republican districts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they already have a supermajority in the Democratic legislature. They have a handful of Republicans. I think there's 12 or 13, and I might be being generous. 5 of those seats are eliminated through the redistricting gerrymandering effort under Prop 50. They certainly aren't going to redistrict. The only way, because Gavin Newsom won't hold a special session, and Democrats certainly won't vote themselves out of power.
Right.
So what they would have to do is the state would have to be sued by the DOJ.
Well, okay. On a side note, from what I understand, I still have family down there. I got family leaving because of all this nonsense. But here's an interesting thing is, it's possibly true that California is within 48 days of being bankrupt at any given moment. I mean, you're out of money. They spend it on trains that don't go anywhere and things that don't work. I mean, do you think the average citizen down there understands that? It's the highest tax state, the highest gas tax state, and the list goes on and on.
Well, you have to understand that California has been invaded by the third world. And so what they understand is their culture, and they were raised under socialism. So they always have other people's money. They just have to tax the billionaires, and then they have to tax the millionaires, and then they have to tax people that are making $100,000 a year.
Yeah, okay.
That's what the Democrats will do, and that's what this billionaire tax allows for. So if this billionaire tax passes, how it's written is that everyone can be taxed, and even a millionaire will have to list his assets. So the Democrats believe that they will never run out of other people's money.
Yeah. By the way, on that particular ballot measure coming up there in November, there's a part of that these wealthy people have to get their fixed assets or their business assets out of the state because it's retroactive. And so here in Oregon, we're seeing major ownership of big pieces of equipment come into Oregon just to get out of California in case that thing passes.
Right, and we're seeing the same thing in Nevada too. We've had 5 billionaires move to Nevada just in the last handful of months, and it's between northern and southern Nevada, and they're coming directly from California, and that's exactly what's happening. And the Democrats just don't seem to understand that although that they covet money and they love to confiscate other people's money, money is dynamic. Money moves. And when you are a billionaire or a business owner, you have the ability to move that money. You're not stuck in one place.
Yeah. You and I both know what TDS is. But I have to admit, I have SDS, and I have shift derangement syndrome. What can you do to get rid of this guy?
Oh, shift.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes. Shifty shift. I didn't understand that at first. You know, that I was on the radio the other day and I was saying that I was very, you know, I've been.
Hurry up, I got a minute. Less than a minute, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think it would take charges to remove Adam Schiff, and specifically his leaking and his coordination of the Russian disinformation dossier.
Okay. All right. Hopefully that's coming. That's another subject for another day. Let's see how that plays. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for your time. Keep up the good work. You got your hands full running the California Globe, and you go to californiaglobe.com, and that's where you can track with what she's covering, not only in California, but Nevada and all over the place. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much.
Right,
Thanks, Perry.
See ya.